Welcome to the podcast. With me today is Kris Ruby. Kris is the founder of the Ruby Media Group, and she is an expert in AI technology and how AI technology might influence the future we are already in. So, Kris, welcome to the program. Before we get started, you and I go way back as friends, and our careers are sort of in parallel fields, but we always peer into one another's world. Can I just get a little snapshot for everybody of how you got to this point and
Sure.
in your journey?
So, thank you so much for having me, Jai. It's great to be here. And it's definitely crazy how much things have changed in the past. I don't know. It seems like I've known you over 20 years now. So, time flies. And never did I think we'd be sitting here talking about AI, but here we are. My background is in public relations and social media marketing. I went to Boston University's College of Communications. I majored in PR there, and I started my company, Ruby Media Group, out of college. I've always been an entrepreneur. And obviously, things have really changed a lot in the PR, marketing, and advertising industries over the years. So originally, we started out primarily doing social media marketing, but then as the industry evolved, we evolved with it and started doing other things like social audio, digital PR. We entered into the SEO space as well because we saw how important that was for clients in terms of building their digital brand online and online reputation management. And what's really interesting and how I got into this, to answer your question, is I worked with a client about a year or so ago, for over a year. They were in the content marketing space and they are a leader in the AI technology space in terms of content marketing. And so that is when I really first got exposed to all of this. And I will say, owe a lot of credit for education in this space and first really learning about this from the people that I worked with. I've interviewed them as well, and they're real leaders in this area. And the other way that I know about it is probably really from my addiction to buying lifetime deals in software. And so what's really interesting is that people who buy software typically tend to be ahead of the curve. The AI and GPT-3 tools I've certainly been buying for probably well over 2 years now, and people are just starting to discover them, but they're not actually new. Again, they've been in the market for over 2 years, and so there's really this explosion now of people starting to finally understand, I think, what we've already understood, which is that this is a race against the machine, and those that don't understand that may quickly find themselves out of a job.
So let's backtrack here. GPT-3, tell us what these technologies are that we're so concerned about, and then we'll talk about their positive applications and the potential for our evolution and also the dangers. I think most people don't know what the ramifications of these technologies
So,
are.
in a nutshell, they're different engines. And yeah, that's the best way to say it. They're different engines when it comes to artificial intelligence. And there are two things that really matter. One is which engine you're using, and the other is the training data, how large that training data set is, and if that data set is fine tuned. Right now, you have a lot of people plugging into OpenAI, for example, which you could do. You can use the OpenAI playground, you can use ChatGPT, which I showed you earlier. You can use all of these things, but there's a difference between using what is publicly available versus using your own data that you have fine tuned. And that is going to really be the difference in software and in the application of the software moving forward. For example, you are in the health, fitness, wellness space. If you use ChatGPT right now, or if you go to the OpenAI playground, you are going to get back data that is not necessarily fine tuned on the answers that you'd want in that vertical, as opposed to, for example, if you had your own data that you trained a model on based on your answers that you deem to be correct in this space, obviously the generative output of that would be vastly different. The same thing, for example, with me in public relations. I could use Chat GPT. The answers are going to be the same for everyone. They're going to be very different. However, if I had my own neural network that was trained on thousands of public relations pitches from publicists, and that would show me a TV booking pitch, for example, that's similar to the type of work that I would write on my own or produce for clients because it's trained by that data. So the difference is in the data, the training, and the engine.
I think you're one step ahead of go back to where I was this afternoon when you called me and tried to tell me about ChatGPT and what it does. Like in basic terms, what people need to know who are listening here is that this chat bot wrote a far better blog post in 2 minutes than I would have spent a day and a half writing and polishing, or 2 days creating. It came up with copy, potential jingles that I'm exploring. You just plugged it in randomly for my podcast, and it came up with 15 reasonable, intelligent options for me to use. This would have taken a week of creative work for me to come to these options and select the best three. For the first time, I feel, from the little testing that you did with me this afternoon, I feel like I've arrived at a point where I have literally transcended my mind, just like the steam engine transcended muscle, how much work we could do with muscle. Now, the human speed and computing power is being far surpassed using our own total sum of knowledge, which is available on the web for these AIs to use and help us write. So this means anybody out there can write an intelligent sounding piece of content. It doesn't necessarily, won't be credible. It won't be stand up to every fact check, but it's a little genie out of the bottle kind of a situation, wouldn't you say?
Correct. Yeah. And I think you really get it. So these are generative copywriting assistants. They're not meant to replace a person. They are not meant to write articles for you without human intervention. And if you read the terms of service of OpenAI or any of these tools, they very clearly state that as well. And Google in recent weeks has cracked down on AI generated content when it comes to search engine optimization. So if you're using these tools and just cranking out content and putting that on your website, hoping to rank on search engines, that's not the right way to use it. So it's also important to state that there's a right way and a wrong way. And I think you certainly understood the right way where we did a bunch of different outputs for you. And then you said, wait, this phrase right here really resonates with me. Like, this is exactly what I was trying to say, but this says it better. And then you're taking that and then you're rewriting it and then you're making it into your own. It's basically like having a second brain. It's like having a whole creative team around you that can give you more ideas on what you're already thinking about. And then you can take that and move forward with it.
It's so deep. I'm stuck at what a game changer this is in terms of, like, initially thinking so many people will now be out of a job, but then how do you pivot? Because in the old days, the guys who rode horse and buggy for taxis, they got replaced by cars. Now the cars are driving themselves. All these disruptive technologies are opportunities to pivot. But where do you go for someone like you who gets paid very highly for your eye with content strategies? Is this decentralized technology that's available to almost everybody at a reasonable price going to put people like you out of work?
Yes, 100%. Definitely written an article about this as well, about the ethical considerations in the future of the marketing industry. And I'll share that with your listeners because I think it provides a really sobering analysis of what marketers need to think about. For any marketer, there comes a time when you have to come to terms with the fact that sometimes this output, in many cases, is better than your own. And that requires a deep process, a deep psychological process and level of consciousness of really bashing your own ego a little bit to say, wait a second, this is something. This is going to change the world. And that's not hyperbole here. Those that understand this get that this is going to be how wars are fought and won in the future. And for as far advances as you believe we are right now, I will say that the US pales in comparison to China in terms of
What
how
what
far advanced they are with AI.
what do you mean this is how wars will be fought, in terms of info wars, or how
Well,
is it
that's
a, or it's a
there's
it's
cyber
it's
wars.
an arms race in some way?
There's a digital arms race. It's a digital arms race. So one is in misinformation by putting out misinformation. Two is in, are you being used for training data? Did you consent to that or not? Did you have the ability to opt out? There's going to be new regulation and legislation around AI. as well. And as far as the Air Force or Department of Defense, they have put proposals out which would put billions of dollars of investment into this area for everything from flight simulation to training to making sure that we have the latest and greatest technology. And for some, that will come in the form of multi-million dollar contracts for those who are creating and deploying this software. But I will say that we really need more people in this space. If the US wants to win the AI war, we need more talent to compete. It's not just about using the tools to write copy or using them as a second brain. It's about figuring out how can you use these tools to replace or automate in every single industry that
In every single industry you're in. So it's turning things upside down for sure.
yes. Yeah, I can say at least in the PR marketing agency world, there are people that think, for example, I'm sure you've seen this viral Lensa app going around where you upload a few of your pictures, it creates AI
Yeah.
generated portraits. And they're like, "Oh, this is a fad." No, it's not a fad. So that's only one component of this. And I also showed you
Why is
Midjourney
that not a fad? Because people are going to be using that to post as their content?
because we've seen this over the years above and beyond AI, where we've already had technology where you can upload your images to the terms of service component of that is a whole other issue of concern for privacy. That is different than generative AI. What I showed you earlier today, which is something like Stable Diffusion or Midjourney, where we talk about a prompt, giving me a prompt saying, I want a picture of a yogi doing a silhouette of a yogi skeleton in the winter. And boom, within 30 seconds, we have four really good options to choose from.
Really, really original looking, interesting pieces of art.
Pieces of art. Yes.
Yeah.
And they are pieces of art. And this is the other issue where artists say it's not art at all. It's not art. You're stealing from the internet. You didn't make it. You're re rendering images that other people have made. But to your point, people have said the same thing over and over and over again with every major technological advancement in history.
Can this make us smarter? Can
Yes.
it
In
can
medicine, the right application of this in medicine, if you're training AI on how to detect for certain things in breast cancer, if you're training AI in cardiology, where Apple Watches have certainly done a lot with AI recently, if the AI can be helpful in things like diabetes management or through alerts or through detection, early detection, AI is going to change medicine as
Mhm.
we know it. And I think the crazy part is that right now people are just looking at, look at this shiny image I made, or look at this amazing copy I wrote. This is the tip of the iceberg. That's where we are. This is just the tip of the iceberg. This is coming for every single industry. And there's both pros and cons to that. But I think that we really need to understand that the world as we know it is not going to be the same.
Where's the departure? Is it that everybody can be like in the health space, someone that's 20 years old doesn't have the same experience working with bodies and minds and behavior change as someone who's 50 years old who's been in the field for a long time. Can that 20-year-old come off as an expert even though they lack experience with this technology? Is that one of the dangers?
That is one of the dangers, but if that 20-year-old is just using generated output, chances are 50% of it is going to be wrong. You also have to look at what is the cutoff date that the model stopped training on. So the model we looked at today, the cutoff date I believe was around 2021. If you ask who is the CEO of Twitter right now, you're not going to get the correct answer. So anyone who's doing what you just said, that's just a race to the bottom. That's not the right way to be using this because you are going to be generating factually incorrect information. AI is best in the way that you used it, where you're thinking of, I need a slogan for this, or for a marketing campaign, for an email blast, a subject line. I also think that in general, automation is all around us right now, and we don't even realize it. So, for example, every time I use QuickBooks, AI is working in the background. When I pay for something, it's automatically saying, should we always tag this as this category? That's fueled through artificial intelligence. I think people are actually using AI in their lives and just don't know it.
The sensors are everywhere. They're all over the new cars. I have a sensor on my body that's AI powered, tracking all of my metrics. It's becoming a part of who we are. I think we're transforming. This is the beginning of a major transformation of the way things are done, the way we process data, the way we do our work. the way we categorize information, have access to information. I almost feel like it's hard to keep up with it.
It is. We could do an entire show around the changes and advancements in AI because if I were to have created that same image we created today of the yogi skeleton doing yoga in the winter, 4
Yeah.
weeks ago it wouldn't have looked like that. 4 weeks ago it would have looked much worse. And the reason it's changed is because so many people are using this, they're learning from that, they're providing feedback. So this is all really this human experiment in real time, and that's why even with ChatGPT, it's a research preview to give them feedback to make this better. So
Yeah.
what concerns do you have?
What concerns? Well, I'm excited. Let's talk about what I'm excited about first. I am excited about the ability to streamline things and to work more efficiently. If I embrace this, I can attain clarity around my work. I can learn how to communicate my message of health and wellness and longevity a little better. I can perhaps reach more people and I could learn more with some of the features you were showing me, like asking it questions and getting very specific data back. There's a lot of potential for growth. That's where I'm interested in.
I think that there's this fear of using any of these AI tools. People don't want to be found out for using AI and, oh, is this a bad thing? I also want to share with listeners just because that you use the tools doesn't mean you have to use the output that it generates. It's sort of like every picture that you paint, you don't necessarily hang up on your wall, but it takes you one step further in the creative process to becoming who you are as an artist. And some people will listen to this and say, none of you are real artists. You're pressing buttons on a computer that doesn't make you an artist. Okay. I mean, that's not really a debate that I'm going to get into. I think that art is really a personal decision, and so is the creative path and the creative journey. And if you just get one phrase or one slogan or one image and it moves you personally to create in a different direction, to me, that's all part of the creative journey, and that can make what you put out to your audience that much better.
Yeah, we're thrust into the subscriber economy. Everyone has a mic, everyone has a website, everyone has a page that is offering their service. It's very destabilizing, decentralizing, and it puts a lot of hands in the creator, a lot of power in the hands of the creator right now.
Yes and no. I mean,
No?
I would argue no, because you can just be removed off these platforms so fast that I actually really think they have much
For
less.
saying the wrong thing?
Yes. Or
Well, I
or
don't agree with that. I don't think that's cool.
Yeah, well, for saying the wrong thing or the future of content moderation, artificial intelligence is going to be a large component of it. I just experienced that with Meta, Facebook, where their AI incorrectly flags something. And if you don't have human intervention, good luck getting your account back. This is the future. This is a perfect example of where AI is, it's actually making decisions on things you're using. Whether or not people realize that is a whole other question, but it's already happening.
What are the ways in which the world has changed forever because of what I saw today?
Entire industries are going to be completely disrupted. Even software, for example, I tried something yesterday where it basically creates a back end for project management for you because it's trained on AI. That's very different than using clunky templates like we normally would and having something that's not truly customized to your needs or that you have to spend time personally customizing. AI can save people time and in some cases save people money. Um, in other respects, it can also cost a lot for proper implementation. So we could talk about that as well. People look at this and think, oh, I can replace an entire marketing firm with these AI tools. I think that's a mistake. And I'm not just saying that because of a marketing firm. There are real hard costs above and beyond using these tools. One is a proper onboarding and implementation of the tools. And the other is that not everything the tools spit out are good, right? There's some things that are going to hit the mark. There's some things that are terrible. All of that anyone in advertising knows is very similar to the regular creative process. You need someone with a background in strategy who knows the difference. So if you don't have that level of human intervention with the machine, You could be choosing output that is just really bad.
What do we do about this? We have to adapt and pivot and change directions, especially people like you.
Yes. Yeah, if you're not thinking about how you can put yourself out of business with AI, you're thinking about the wrong thing. Every single person needs to be thinking about that. As you talked about earlier, the main focus of your message is self reinvention, self exploration. And I think that if we approach it from that perspective and take the fear part out of it, it can be a journey into yourself and into new parts of your career that you may not have yet explored. But I do think that the fear comes in because people feel so stuck. They're so afraid to reinvent themselves or to try out this technology because they think it's going to take their job. What they don't realize is they could actually get more work. If you understand prompt engineering, if you look on LinkedIn for how many jobs exist right now for AI, for data scientists, for people who are trained in machine learning, that market is growing off the charts. It's all about getting over that fear, and certainly that's something that you're an expert in. How would you tell people to get past that limiting fear that they have?
Limiting fears need to be looked at in an altered state that we yogis call yogic rest. So it's a state of deep relaxation mixed with awareness. So you're trying to calm and calm and calm, but not fall asleep. When you're in that place, which is very subtle underneath yourself, you can address what's in the subconscious mind. And that is the point at which I think when an AI is drawing from all of mankind's accumulated knowledge or art to make a new image or inspire itself to write a new piece of copy, it is drawing from infinity. When we're in the subconscious, that is more the space that's beyond our limited ego. And so that's where we draw a lot of power and healing energy from. We don't feel the sense of annihilation that we're going to die one day. You almost got me to write my obituary today with the AI, and you plugged it in and you said, how did you frame it? That people come to life, or when they see how sad they use their time in their lifetime and what their career highlights were, that it wasn't fulfilling.
That's a
Choose.
perfect example of fear. People are so afraid to write their obituary. They think it's doom and gloom and terrible and the worst possible thing you could talk about. Whereas I see, wait a second, I want more for myself when I see that, yes, I'm great at marketing, great at PR, just social media commentator. It makes me want more. When I look at the AI generated obituary, I'm like, I need to get out there. This isn't what I want my obituary to read. I want more. I think people are just so afraid to do this exercise. I don't know if it's because they're afraid to see the truth, afraid to see the results, but I actually think it could be a positive force for good of encouraging people to do more.
So, where do you see yourself pivoting with this tool in your back pocket? What areas are opening up? Because this show is largely about holding possibilities open in the second half of life. When someone gets to the second half of life, that they can sieve away behaviors that don't work and retain the ones that do, but use that as a base to reinvent yourself, to add new skills, to take a risk, to invest in yourself as the economy is having these challenges. That's the best thing you can do, is invest in yourself, your personal development.
Yes, millions of dollars are headed towards investments in generative artificial intelligence. And I think right now there's going to be a shift from people being consumers of AI tools, purchasing these tools every month, to actually educating themselves on how to make their own. That's the shift that I think needs to occur because when you have more people who are empowered to create their own tools and to fine tune that data and also to figure out how to even collect the data in the first place, then you have better output, which leads to better outcome. One of the things that is important for people to understand when it comes to generative AI is that the input directly correlates to the output. And you saw that today. The better input you gave me, the
Yeah.
better output it spit out.
By specificity, you mean, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Telling it what to do.
Yes, exactly. In learning those command prompts, right? It's going to be an assistant for you in a whole other level. One area that I think is really interesting and all is actually children using generative AI technology. I was recently with my niece and nephew, and I said to my niece, let's create some AI artwork. And before that started, I said, let's go to the store. What do you want me to buy you? And she said, I want a unicorn dog. And I said, well, I can't really buy a unicorn dog at the store. But then I thought, wait a second, I can't buy one, but you can make one right now on Midjourney. And it was the most amazing experience. And to watch that happen in front of my eyes, because as adults, we're used to saying to kids, oh, that's in their imagination. But now kids are going to have the ability to take anything in their imagination and see in 30 seconds that come to life. Think about how that's going to change their entire childhood.
Hmm.
We're so used to growing up and hearing like, "Oh, no, tricks are for kids." Remember the cereal, tricks
Cereal. Yeah.
yeah, but what if it's not? What if all the things we told were so silly or foolish? What if we could now make? Think about how that's going to change the future of mankind and empower them.
It's incredible. Downstream, how weird and how wild and how wacky is our world about to become from this?
How weird in our
How weird and wild and wacky is it getting?
Well, what do you mean by that? Give me an example.
In 2 or 3 years, will we all have our personal apps on our phone, every trainer having their own thing, every yoga teacher having their own program where their subscribers, it's all personalized. Everyone has their app. It's been decentralized.
Yeah, I don't know that decentralized is even the best word for all of this, because the reason I say that is because there still is heavy centralization in all of this. So anyone who's really relying on OpenAI as a backend, there's still level of centralization and there's still terms of service. And even in Midjourney, for example, if you put in certain words pertaining to the pandemic, that's blocked and can get you blocked off the platform. So I just want to be super clear that I don't necessarily believe that anything about AI is decentralized in any way with the current censorship that already exists in it.
Maybe I meant totally accessible.
Yes. Well, so that's going to be another challenge here. Think about the disruption waves that caused this week, because you have everyone paying for software, sometimes hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a month for enterprise tools. And then Chat GPT comes out and disrupts that and says, hey, wait, you have access to all of this for free. Well, what does that do to someone's business model? Right? Where people are paying for this level of data every month. So again, that's why I think the more you can differentiate what you're doing and fine tune your data and have your own data and your own team of data scientists working with you, the less you'll be reliant on any larger entities to run your business in this space.
Boy, it sure.
I feel like I'm like like I feel like are you okay? You feel like I like rocked your world today with this AI news.
Well, I am surely shattered by how accurate, how many possibilities I was given, and I just, yeah, I know. At first, I felt my initial reaction was, "This is inauthentic. It's not my voice," but it's so arduous to do it. You're on your own, to
Yes.
channel and to write and to transcribe and to hope for a novel idea in your writing that's
Well,
not just iterative. It's challenging, and
yeah,
this just made it easy.
I think the re-rendering process or the gamification process a little bit and all of this in terms of active learning is going to be important. So that means that you have certain tools that are going to be learning based on your likes and dislikes. That's really, I believe, what's happening right now with Chat GPT, where they want that feedback. What output do people like versus what are they saying is bad, irrelevant, or outdated? So what people need to understand is that these tools are in training. They're learning. It's similar to the robot mop that I have. It maps and every time it cleans the floor, it's better. Each time it gets better, and it's the same thing with this technology too.
So it's improving moment to moment.
Yeah, look at what happened today with you. It went from you being like, "This is okay," to being mind blown with the results because of the feedback we were giving it based on what you liked and didn't like. By the end, it hit it out of the park, and that was just not even that much time.
No, it was in no time. It was in minutes.
Were you expecting that call today about AI to change your world?
I knew this was happening. I knew this was going to go down. I didn't think we were there with the amount of precision and the fact that everybody has it now. That's what's bonkers to me. that everyone is a content creator, everyone is a walking business, and everyone has this tool, this super powerful tool. It
Yeah.
makes me feel lost in an ocean of data and an ocean of information. Like, where will I possibly look for good sources of information now? I'd have to really narrow my band of what I'm exposing myself to because there can be so much stuff on the surface.
So you could be reading an article and really not have any idea that it was written by a
Yeah,
machine.
that's what makes me anxious, especially around the health space and nutrition space.
There are certain terms actually that the AI is actually not supposed to be used for anything political or for any medical advice. It is actually not supposed to be used for that in any way. So we'll see where that goes. But I believe that OpenAI's terms are very restrictive about that.
Do you feel like problems are cropping up with our development of technology faster than our ability to regulate them?
Yes, 100%.
It's getting to that point. The government can't pass enough bills in time for what we're developing.
Yes. Well, there's been different cases regarding copyright over what you're creating with AI. Who really owns that? It's challenging. Do you own it? Does the software developer own it? Or does the original artist own it? And all of these things did not exist even just a few months ago. And I will say this, as marketers and creatives, you need to be thinking about this, especially if it's a service you provide to a client. At the end of the day, that liability will fall on you. This is not just something that you can add into your practice and start using without really understanding or even updating your contracts before you provide services using this technology. Well, thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, yeah. Is there any parting shots, anything you'd like to warn us about with this technologies, or are you a green light to start using them?
I would say be careful how you use the technology. It's not a replacement, it's an assistant. And I think that it can be a force for creative good if you use it the right way. But if you're thinking of just generating a bunch of AI content and spamming that all over the internet, no, I don't think that's the best use of it. This is going to make the case for investigative journalism that much more important, that we will really need people who can be great journalists. That is going to be the distinguishing factor between what AI can write versus what a journalist can discover. So the difference is not going to be in the writing. The difference is going to be in the actual underlying research and discovery process. And you'll start to see that divide get that much larger.
People will yearn for facts
Yes,
and
exactly.
authenticity, and maybe they'll return to long form content.
Well, that's how I write. That's what I do for clients. I don't do short form content. So I've always been a fan in terms of a content marketing strategy. I'm a large advocate of long form content because that is directly in alignment with what Google wants, which is writing content that leads to information gain for your users. If you think about it, AI content doesn't necessarily always lead to information gain if 10 people can write the same article. So, what can you give people that no one else can give them? No other AI tool or no other human can give them. And that's where the human touch and strategic insight is still going to be really important.
Important. Wow. What an enlightening moment for humankind and our species, and to be having it blow my lid off today in the middle of the day was quite an experience. So, Kris, thank you. Where can folks find you? What are your handles, your website, Ruby Media Group?
My website is RubyMediaGroup.com and KrisRuby.com, and you can see 3 different articles I have written on artificial intelligence and the future of marketing, as well as GPT-3 and what will be coming up soon, which is GPT-4.
GPT 45678 to infinity.
And Twitter, I'm at Sparkling Ruby.
Sparkling Ruby. Okay, Kris, thanks for coming on the show. We'll have you back in 4 months to talk about GPT 4.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a good night.
All right, take care.